I don't want to waste any time because Corn Pop, you're a working guy. You got to get back to work. So we're going to take advantage of the time. What's going on up there in Maine, and why are you fighting for freedom?
Well, we got a lot of things going on right now. We got a tyrant as a governor, Janet Mills. She pretty much going along with all these vaccine mandates. Just had a bunch of healthcare workers walk off the job. She's now applying one for BIW, which is who makes our naval ships for our Navy. And from what I'm hearing, about 75% of the workers are going to walk off.
This is up in what, Bath, up in Maine at the shipyard?
Bath Iron Works.
That's right. And that's actually part of the, for the folks down here in Connecticut where we are located, Electric Boat and General Dynamics is a part of sort of they in the same industry. So iron workers, hardworking men and women who are building these ships for the country's protection, they're now being affected by this mandate in the state of Maine. Talk a little bit about, again, meeting you on Saturday, you were an energy that was needed.
Let's go, Brandon!
You definitely brought it, not just the look, but we'll talk a little bit about the Marjorie Greene speech because you were very, very excited. You were rock star-like in there, so we appreciated you. But what's America facing the challenges in your opinion? Why are you inspired as a young American to stand up and fight for freedoms and choice?
The thing that inspires me the most is I have a 3-year-old son. Well, he'll be 3 in November. And I want him to grow up in the America that I once knew 10, 15 years ago, where everybody got along and it was unity. That's what we need again. And I don't know what these Democrats are got going on right now, but they are destroying everything that this country was built on. And I just want my son in 10 or 15 years not to have to apologize for being a straight white male.
Interesting. So we'll get into that, and I think there's a certain amount of appetite for that kind of conversation right now, currently in the country. But you do see a major divide between races. You've seen a major divide between economics, and clearly the divide between politics. But let me ask you: are you a political person? Because you don't strike me as someone that I think you've been inspired to get into the political side. Have you always had an appetite for politics?
The day I had an appetite for politics was the day Donald J. Trump came down the escalator.
That's the day you bought into it.
Honestly, that was the day I really started paying attention to what was going on, because I remember before he came down that escalator, everybody loved him. And then I seen how it slowly started to shift, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Right.
And I really slowly started paying attention to what was going on and what policies were being pushed and what the narrative was being said and what was actually being said.
Well, why do you think let me ask you though, Corn Pop, why do you think people love Donald Trump prior to being in office as the president? What was their attraction to him then, as you said?
Before, they loved hearing the truth. They loved how they loved the man that he was because he was straightforward with everybody. He told you how it was. He told you when you screwed up. Then he also told you when you did a good job. I mean, that's what people seen on TV. People like that, even though they don't want, now they're trying, people are like, oh, we don't like that kind of personality, but that's what attracts people. And honestly, people need to stop being afraid of the truth.
So you're up in Maine, one of the quieter states in the country, but you're not being very quiet. You're actually being vocal and heard. The vaccine issue, moving on from the Donald Trump conversation, I'm sure we'll talk more about him as we go forward. But the major issue of the day right now is this mandates and the vaccination and what it's doing to our children. You mentioned your son. You're worried about his future. Right now, we see now they even came out with mini-sized doses of vaccination so we can put smaller amounts into these kids. How does that make you feel as a father and someone that wants to have choice?
The hair on my neck is rising. That's how pissed off I get. What makes me more mad is that this only goes on the longer we allow it to. If more of us stood up and said, no, we are not injecting our kids with this poison, or if more of us stood up and said, we're not sending our damn kids to school with a mask on, then we would actually have a foot to step on. But when there's only 5 or 10 parents out there, showing up to a school board meeting, my son's not even old enough to be in school, and I'm going to school board meetings.
How can you guys sit up here unmasked enforce if our kids were sitting in this same building, would they have to wear a mask? They would, right? So how are you guys sitting here? You guys are more at risk than our children, at age risk, by CDC guidelines. And yet you're sitting here all, not 6 feet apart, without a mask on. But you're going to force our children, if they were sitting in this same room, to have a mask on, right? I know you're not going to answer me. It's okay.
And the reason
You're getting ready, obviously, because your child is eventually going to go there, and you know this is going to be something that if it keeps the way it is, you're never going to change it if we don't fight now. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
So, Corn Pop, tell me this: you talked why you got inspired because of Trump. You're now out fighting for your child. You work up in Maine. You're an average everyday person, and I'm seeing across the nation average everyday people stepping up, getting involved. What would you tell those people that are sitting on the sidelines right now why they should get involved for this fight?
Because they can cancel one person, they can cancel two people. My Facebook literally got deleted the day after the rally, and it was because
Really?
of. Oh yeah, I'm permanently deleted off Facebook 2 times. But
Wow.
yeah. So if more of us stood up instead of watching on the sidelines, watching the 5 or 6 people that are standing up, they wouldn't be able to cancel people like me or people that are actually standing up.
Mm-hmm.
That's why more of us need to stand up, because if we don't, it's going to be way too late. We don't have much time.
Well, when you talk about being canceled, so social media, interesting platform. We have to admit that I think during the Donald Trump administration, during his presidency, social media went hog wild. It just went crazy. We see the deplatforming of people like himself, President Trump. You're in good company, by the way. You and Donald J. Trump have been deplatformed. What is the effect on us as a society when we're being controlled by propaganda control media along with the political parties in control? How does that make you feel towards that future?
It scares me because they can literally dictate what you can see and what you can believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they literally push narratives down people's throat instead of letting people do their own research. They hide the truth and push propaganda. And
Right.
look what it's done to this country in the last year. You know, it's like I explained to everybody. I love talking to people that have the opposite views of me, because that's one thing that makes this country great, is at the end of the day, we're all allowed to be free thinkers and think the way we want. The day that we all have to think the exact same way, that's when this country isn't going to be great. You know,
Interesting.
Democrats
Definitely.
and Republicans used to be able to get along 10, 15 years ago. And the reason why I believe that we were able to get along 10, 15 years ago is because what separated Democrats and Republicans, we had the same goal. We just had different ways of reaching it. That's what made you a Democrat and what made you a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, we don't even have the same goal anymore. So you can't even sit down at a table and talk to somebody. And it's because of, like you said, being the narrative that's being pushed down everyone's throat. The second someone sees me, they think, oh my God, he's a racist. Or oh my God, he's this. Oh my God, he's that. They don't even know me.
But are you any of those things? You don't, Corn Pop, you don't have to say it, but are you any of those things, just so we can get it out of the way? Any of those things, right? So just your appearance, you got a beard, you wear a hat, you have flags on you. I actually had George Floyd's uncle on, Selwyn Jones, on my show, and he said, you're one of those flag patriots, which is somewhat associated, and I think he's coming on soon. He's a great guy who I don't agree with on everything, but his point was that we that wear these flags and have patriotism are associated somehow with racism, and I just don't get it.
I don't get it either. I don't get how the American flag offends people.
Mm-hmm.
When people, one thing I try to explain, there's a reason why people in other countries are waving the American flag. That flag stands for something. There's a reason why when all that stuff was going on in Cuba, all that stuff was going on in Hong Kong, all that stuff was going on in Venezuela, guess what? They weren't just waving the American flag, they were waving the Trump flag as well, because what that man stood for. That man stands for freedom.
Do you feel that it's reflected in corporate media across the country fairly, how there is a sense of patriotism versus the majority of the the Democratic leadership party under this Biden administration? Seems like their narratives that we're broken, divided. We don't have a good country. We need to cancel culture, almost everything. And I'm wondering, do you think we get a fair shot to be heard on corporate media?
We don't. I mean, look at myself exactly. I mean, I got deleted off Facebook for starting a Let's Go branding chant, but yet, I mean, look who else is on Facebook and look at the content all these other people are sharing, you know?
Right.
They're literally taking people up. Like the second you say anything about COVID-19, the Chinese virus, you know, whether or not that it's right or wrong, you know, at the end of the day, that's what we're supposed to be able to do as Americans. We're supposed to be able to hear something, do our own research, and think freely. And right now, we're not allowed to do that.
Free thinking is definitely something that's being challenged in this country. Again, we're talking with Corn Pop here on the Kevin Allen Show. This is our midday interview live from Maine. You know, one of the things you shared with me on the rally that day, we'll get into the rally, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in a moment in Plainfield, Connecticut, that you and I both were attending. But you were up in Maine and you've been standing up for the rights of children you talked about. Recently, you sent me some video of some of the dialogue between some of the folks in charge of the public health in Maine. The challenges were the numbers. Break down those numbers and tell me why you believe those people that were vaccinated and those passing from those numbers are concerning for a small state like Maine.
Because the more people are passing away that have gotten a vaccine than last year when the vaccine wasn't available. And what they're doing is they're hiding that information from us because they want everyone to get this vaccine instead of being truthful with somebody and saying, hey, listen, these are the side effects that come with this vaccine. This is your risk. You make your own choice. But yet what they're doing is they're hiding what is really going on here in Maine so they can push a certain narrative and get everyone to take this shot.
Corn Pop, are you saying the governor of Maine is actively denying information to the constituents in Maine?
Yes. Did I send you so the governor of Maine was actually in a rally. I mean, we had a big parade here that was pushed back. It was the birthday of Maine. Probably it was like last month. Actually, Dr. Shiva was there and spoke. Okay. And we actually followed her entire float, the entire parade, screaming at her, telling her what she's doing. Looked a healthcare worker in the face. We have it on video. She looked a healthcare worker in the face when that healthcare worker told her she was going to get fired because of her mandate. She goes, I don't care.
She don't care.
That's
so she doesn't care about. She doesn't care. The governor of Maine does not care about putting people out of work. Certainly also taking your rights and freedoms away. You know, Maine is a state that people think of. That's where they go to retire. They go to live in a peaceful place. It sounds like things aren't really working the way Maine residents want it to be up there. What do you do when you have a governor who's out of control like this?
Get her out of office. Page 2022.
There it is.
Yes,
is that
sir.
Who's running?
That's who's running. He was the governor right before her. He's also really close to Trump, so I'm hoping that Trump comes up and endorses him. I know that Trump offered him a spot on the administration when he didn't get the re-election, but you know, I'm 100% behind him, and he's just like Trump. He's gonna have a comeback tour. He's a fighter. He spits the truth, and you know, he says it how it is, and that's the one thing I respect about him. And that's the one thing that I respected about Trump, because they're not politicians, they're businessmen. Right. They're people that stood up because they seen what was going on in this country, and he sees what's going on in Maine.
He sees it, and so you're talking about the previous governor of Maine. He certainly, like Trump, gets a lot of attention. Had some things that trended a few years ago, comments and such.
Yep.
What were the overall feeling in Maine? I mean, obviously he didn't get reelected, but probably that smear on the campaign trail from corporate media didn't help. What's the feeling about getting him back in office? Is there an energy building up there?
Oh man, he had he launched his campaign probably about I think it was about a month ago. I would say he probably had about 3,000, 4,000 people at the launch. I mean, people are excited about him in Maine. I will tell you that.
Very, very cool. So we'll keep in touch with that. And if you have some events coming up, let us know. We'll take a ride up and we'll cover them actually with you up there.
We actually got one. We actually got one for the BIW workers on November 6th. We're holding a rally right outside the BIW. If anyone knows any BIW workers that would love to get involved, I would appreciate it. I've been reaching out, trying to get in touch with the union, trying to get them involved a little bit. I don't know what's going on. I haven't really got a call back, but either way, we're going to be out there and we're going to show them that, that we're supporting them, and that when they walk off the job, we're going to be right there with them.
Now, do you actually work in the yard or in that industry, or what is your actual job?
I work at a place here in Waterville. I
Okay.
don't want to talk about it online just because once
Gotcha.
someone finds out where I work, I'll
Yep.
get 100 phone calls saying that I'm an insurrectionist and I need to be. I've already lost my job once because of this, so I try
Okay.
to keep that stuff private. I got a
That's
bunch of
fair.
people.
That's
I got
fair.
a
We
bunch of
won't go
people
there.
up here in Maine that literally follow me and just harass me. I mean, I was in DC on the 6th, and when I got back, I had death threats for almost 3 months. I had people calling my job, trying to get me fired.
So you got some people commenting online here. Party pants.
Party pants gnome. So that, oh wow, so that is the
Gonna know
actual
mostly
hashtag.
for harassing old women. What's this about you harassing party pants? I'd love to hear this one.
Oh, okay, so this is a hashtag. So I got a nationwide hashtag. This is people all over the country looking for me, trying to report me to the FBI.
Okay.
That hashtag is hashtag party pants gnome, like the little things that dance in the yard or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
What he's probably talking about was we had some counter protesters at a rally that we had, and I'm sorry, but the silent majority can no longer be silent anymore, guys. That's why we are losing. We need to start standing up, and I stand up. I say what I say. I didn't harass her or say anything rude or anything out of the way, but I screamed "I love America" or something like that, probably.
So where was this event at? Was this the one this past weekend?
I think that one was at the State House. I do flag waves 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
I do something at least once or twice a week.
So they're following you. Whoever's on here from Maine knows all about you, and they're actually watching this live. So say hi to your fans, Corn Pops.
It's probably
Hey, listen,
Berry, but
let me ask you though, seriously, Corn Pop, because I think the excitement that you have and you bring, we see the same excitement on the other side. And as you said, you like to have that conversation. Do you believe that having those conversations has helped change some people's opinions?
yes, I've actually had someone come up to one of the flag waves, and we were sitting there, we were having a great conversation. She was shaking her head, agreeing with me. I was agreeing with her, and then someone came up and started screaming, you're a racist piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. And of course, then her mind started to change. If you can honestly sit down and talk with people, they agree with a lot of the things that we have to say.
Right.
But they're not hearing those things because of the narrative being pushed.
Right.
That's why I have no problem sitting down and have a conversation. As long as you can sit down and we can exchange words back and forth, I won't disrespect you. We'll sit down and we'll talk. And at the end,
Corn Pop, have you ever yourself ever felt like, well, maybe I just learned something and I admit I was wrong?
Yeah, all the time.
See, but you don't hear that on the corporate media streams of people being able to say, you know what, I might thought of that way, but loving America is the first energy, right? That's what you have. You have a love for your country. This is where you want to raise your family. Then the next thing is you want to live in a quality life where you're free and you're allowed to make decisions. And what's happening, in my opinion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is it seems like this divide is really about more people taking the control seats in Washington, D.C., keeping control from the people, and eventually looking like a socialist society. You have the same thoughts?
I completely agree. That's one of the sayings I say when I'm doing my flag wave through my megaphone, as I say, united we stand or divided we fall. And right now, this country has never been more divided than it is now. First, it was the masked versus the unmasked. Well, my bad. First, it was the whole race thing, with the George Floyd thing. Then it was the masked versus the unmasked. Now it's the vax versus the unvaxxed. It's always something to keep us at each other, because the longer me and you are arguing with each other, the less we're paying attention to what they're doing, like this infrastructure bill they're trying to pass. People don't even realize half the stuff that's in that you're going to get taxed for every mile that you drive, or if any transaction over $600, the government's going to be looking at your bank account.
Right. It's getting great. This same person, your big fan, is asking you about breaking some kind of piece of, let's see, Nick, he broke a piece of the police barricade and used it against the cops, which, you're a cop beater now. Is that what they're saying, Nick?
I guess. If that was the case, look, the FBI's already came by my apartment. We've already chatted. They came by my job too. If that was the case and if that was true, I believe the FBI would have me in cuffs. Don't you think?
I would think so. I would definitely think so. Corn Pop, talking to you, you brought up the George Floyd. We talked about it a couple times, skimmed it. I want to ask you, when you saw that incident taking place, and I'm a former retired corrections guy, I'm a part of the law enforcement team. I'm a family member of law enforcement across the country. I back the blue. But when you saw that incident taking place and the things that ensued afterwards, what were you feeling about just about America at that time?
It was tough. I'm 100% behind this. I 100% support the police, but I also don't support bad police. At the end of the day, do I think George Floyd deserved a knee on his neck for 8 minutes? No. But at the end of the day, if George Floyd would have, just listened, got in the car, saved the fight for another day, I get it. These cops right now are getting a little out of hand, especially these masked police now. But at the end of the day, I feel like it divided us a lot more than it really needed to. And I really think that if the media actually reported how it happened and what happened and actually reported the actual facts on the case, it wouldn't have divided this country the way they did.
Okay, well, I think that's a fair statement, and some have said that it's been politicized. Obviously,
The only cop that talked about is Derek Chauvin, right? Well, what are the races of all the other cops that were standing right there? They weren't white. Right. Why was that not talked about? Because it was a narrative trying to be pushed.
And I think there's a lot of good credibility to that. I do think police reform's been something that's been teased to candidates as they run for election. They go into these mostly Democratic cities, and they actually use that as a platform to build their voting population. Unfortunately, it happened at a perfect storm, and I don't mean a good thing by that. During COVID lockdown, it happened in the country, and it brought us to where we are. Now, let me ask you in regards, you're getting a lot of love today, man. I'm getting a lot of comments about you. You didn't support the police on January 6th. What's that mean? I don't understand, but this is your same fan. You have big fans out here. So, January 6th.
I guess because I was part of the January 6th, I was there. I didn't support the cops. I have been caught saying that, I didn't support the Capitol Police that day because I watched the Capitol Police throw tear gas and shoot rubber bullets at innocent families. There was kids there. There was older people there. What was reported about that day was not true. That was one of the best / worst days of my life because I watched our entire movement go like this.
Explain why best / worst. What's that mean?
The best because it was amazing energy until we got to where the Capitol building was at. Right when Trump was speaking over there, and dude, there was millions of people there, and not one fight broke out. People helping people in wheelchairs. People were just there loving each other, loving this country, and that was what made that the great day. What made it the worst day was watching what happened and realizing that our entire movement was crushed in one day.
And so you were there.
I already knew what was going to be said about us on the way. After that, we were going to be domestic terrorists and all that. I already seen all that happen. And that's what.
You said you had the FBI. Did the FBI come and speak to you about your presence on that day on January 6th? Is that why you've talked to them?
Oh yeah, they said I was top 5 reported in the state of Maine.
They were there at the event.
No, well, yeah, that about me being there at the event, yes.
Okay, so in efforts of full clarity, so the same fan of yours is mentioning you were running with the Proud Boys. Clearly, I've actually had the founder of Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, on. I don't know if you know who Stuart Rhodes is, and he's been a contributor here on this show a couple times. They were there for security for Roger Stone, Alex Jones, and some of the other folks. And it's funny, when you talk about these people that are out there, the patriots of this country, they get labeled as domestic terrorists. That day, did you feel like that there was an effort to be terrorist or be patriots, in your opinion?
Patriots.
Fighting for their country.
Fighting for their country.
Talk about what the other people were like. You said there was kids there on that day, January, because this is a big trending thing right now. Think about it. There's these congressional hearings. The information is coming out slowly. I do know from talking with Marjorie Taylor Greene and listening to her speak, she's a congresswoman, like it or not, whoever in America doesn't like it. But she shared that day that there was a failure, and the failure she blames directly on Nancy Pelosi and the Sergeant of Arms at the Capitol building, who did not cancel or take control of the situation. What would you say to that?
I would completely agree with it. Completely agree with it.
And so when you saw Marjorie Taylor Greene this past weekend, you came down from Maine, you took the long ride down to Plainfield, Connecticut, a blue state, by the way, very blue dominated state. Did you ever in the million years think you'd see Marjorie Taylor Greene in one of these neighboring states in New England, let
Honestly,
alone
no.
in Connecticut? No?
See, I lived in Georgia for 12 years, so that was when I seen it. She was coming close. I had to come.
Okay. So, it's interesting. The same fan of yours now. So wasn't it Antifa who started the riots on January 6th? That's the question out there. Have you been noted for commenting on that? Have you said you
Yeah.
believe there was people there that were dressed like Trump fans or Trump supporters or national, American Patriot supporters, but they were actually there to do evil? Is that what your opinion is?
That's exactly what I told the FBI too.
Mm-hmm.
There was a small group of like 40 people that because once everybody was standing right there on the Capitol steps, it was peaceful. People were singing Amazing Grace, just then there was this group of like 30 people that were running, getting in everybody's face. This is your chance. Fight for your freedom. Get inside the Capitol. Those weren't patriots.
Mm.
I can tell you right now, those weren't patriots.
Well, and who those are the voices you think that led the insurgent into the Capitol that day? Those voices that you could hear near the Capitol steps. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, I was right. So I was part of the first wave that was there because when we got there so late on the 6th, there was so many people there that we couldn't even hear him speak over the speakers because we were all the way back by the Washington Monument. So we were like, all right, the next protest is at the Capitol, so we're going to start heading there. Right. So when I say I was right there on the front line, I was right there on the front line. And then I was back in my hotel room by 3:00.
Did you make a conscious, clearly, I want to put it out there. I'm sure you shared this publicly before. Did you make a conscious decision not to go into the Capitol that day?
They weren't even inside the Capitol when I left.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that that's what was happening. And I told everybody, I said, that's the biggest mistake. What are you guys going to accomplish getting inside? Mm-hmm. They're going to lock the doors. That's a felony.
Right. How far were you? Did you have sight of the most famous face, I think, from the insurgent is the guy dressed up clearly like a Viking? Did you see him near you that day when you were on the Capitol steps?
I got a video of him on my phone.
You do? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share it later?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah.
All right, please do. Love to see it. So, I want to say this, and I'd love to hear your opinion, Corn Pop. I'm a patriot, and I love our country, but I also know there's certain things that we need to do it the right way. And I do think entering that building, as you've indicated, there was other people you believe that day that were there to be troublemakers, and it inspired that energy. Did you hear Donald Trump say, "Go storm the Capitol" at the end of his speech? Did you hear that?
No, not at all.
How did he end his speech that day, if you recall?
To be honest with you, I didn't hear it. Like I said, I didn't hear it live because we couldn't even pull it up on YouTube on the phone because of all the internet service and everything was down and stuff like that. So I can't recall exactly hearing it live, but when I heard it afterwards, he did not say go inside the Capitol. He even said, "I'm going to go down there with you. We're going to go on the steps. We're going to peacefully march." I'm pretty sure those are his exact words. I might have, said a few words wrong, but that's what he said.
We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the funny part.
Who are some of the other speakers that you remember hearing speak?
Like I said, honestly, I didn't hear any of them speak. We couldn't hear them.
It was that big. So what was the estimated amount of people you recall that were there in the Capitol that day, the American Patriots alongside of you? How many total, you think?
Let's put it this way. We were shoulder to shoulder all the way past the Washington Monument. I would hate to put a number on it, man. I could be over-exaggerating and say 2 million, but there was definitely over 1 million people down there. Definitely. Would you not agree? And some have said, I've heard on some of the different platforms, that if they're going to arrest one person, everyone in attendance should be getting arrested as well. So that would be about 2 million. That would be about 2 million arrest warrants that the Capitol sort of police would have to issue. I also agree that if you're going to start arresting us, you need to go arrest BLM and Antifa for the past year and a half of them burning down buildings and all this other shit that they've been doing. If you're going to come after people that literally walked in single file line, granted, they were wrong for going in there, but that was one of the most peaceful insurrections I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, obviously, you probably haven't seen many insurrections. Let's hope that you don't. But in reference to what you said, I mean, there's a lot of credibility. A lot of people have the same feelings across the country. We've seen in different cities, federal buildings, not just being overtaken, but torn down and burned to the ground. Police officers being killed, civilians being killed, businesses being destroyed, and yet we didn't see the same reaction from anyone at the Capitol or in Congress. So I'm kind of wondering. I mean, when you look at this perspective of, this whole going on now, this media sort of frenzy, and especially when it comes to this investigation into the so-called insurrection, how do we come out of this, in your opinion, still getting the Patriots organized and alive, and how do we do it in a way that we never see that happen again?
Well, for one, we stop letting the media control how we think. That's probably the biggest thing. Two, we need to realize that we all bleed red, white, and blue. We are all the same. And we need to stop letting everyone divide us. I really think the big awakening is really about to happen. I do believe these people that are asleep are going to start to wake up and realize what is really going on. Some of them you're not going to be able to wake up. Some of them are not going to be able to handle the truth that's about to come out. How many people are done with the game? Are we going to be locked down again? Are you going to be forced to wear a mask again? Are we going to stand up this time and do what's right? We're done being nice. We're going to let Nils know how we feel. And in 2022, she is gone.